Hey guys, for today's video we are going to do a first impressions and review of the new Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette. This palette released yesterday, which was Black Friday, but if you had a little password to their website on Tuesday of this week, that you could actually order it early, and that is when I ordered mine. So before we kind of get into the first impressions and review of the palette, I just want to give you guys kind of a brief rundown about it. The Smoke Sessions palette retails for $48 on mellowcosmetics.com, and then if you are like me, you paid for shipping on their website, which totaled to $55. And this palette contains 8 eyeshadows in here. 6 of them are shimmer, and then 2 of them are matte. This palette also has a really cool color story to it. I really love it. I think it's really unique. It has these really cool kind of icy blues on the top. It has like an emerald green. It has really unique 2 matte shades in the middle. And then it has some antique gold shades and then kind of a fiery gold as well, which is really cool. I just really think it's a really unique kind of concept for a palette. And I really like that you can do like these gold shades with the blues. I think it's really pretty. I also want to point out that when I did receive my palette from Mellow Cosmetics, that I actually received a damaged palette. The top 3 shades right up in here, Blue Dream, Sweet Tooth, and Mean Green, were all damaged. I just kind of smushed them into the pan so I could review it for you guys today. But if they look a little funky, that is why. I didn't use like any alcohol or anything. I literally just smushed them in with my finger. So that is why you don't see like any of the little leaf prints on the bottom of these 3. I also want to point out, if you are curious as to their customer service, I have that in the review portion of this video. And then as far as packaging wise, this palette has like that Christmassy green type of green to it with little pot leaves all over, and then it says Smoke Sessions in the middle, and then here is the back with little pot leaves all over. The packaging is a cardboard palette with a magnetic seal. It's actually a really tight magnetic seal, which I really like. It's really sturdy and I'm really impressed by that. And then when you do open up your palette, inside is a really nice mirror. I actually use my mirror out of my Gemini palette all the time to do my makeup because it's big enough so I can see both eyes at the same time. But this one is really nice and clear. You can see really easily. It's not a funhouse mirror, but it's really nice quality. I know when Mellow Cosmetics was dropping images on this palette, and also Trend Mood was, that a lot of people were very upset about it having like a marijuana or weed kind of theme to it. And you know, like the outside of it has little pot leaves on it, the back does. And then in the inside, the print on the eyeshadows has little pot leaves as well. And honestly, it doesn't really bother me. I really love the formula of my Gemini palette, so this is the reason why I picked this one up. Because Gemini to me is one of my absolute favorite palettes right now. It's honestly a holy grail for me. And that is why I picked up this Smoke Sessions palette as well, because I was hoping that the formulas would be alike. I just want to point out, I'm not somebody that smokes weed. It's not my thing. I've never tried it. I don't plan on it. It's just not my cup of tea, and if other people want to do it, by all means they can go for it, but I'm not going to be reviewing this palette based on the fact that it has little pot leaves on it. I'm going to be reviewing it based on the blendability, the quality of the eyeshadows, and stuff like that. However, if you would like to see my first impressions using the Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette as well as swatches of this palette, just stay tuned on watching. First, I'm going to go in with a matte kind of creamy white shade, and I'm going to set my eyeshadow primer. Since the Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette does not have like a cream or a transitional shade, I'm just going in with Flashback out of the James Charles palette using a Real Techniques medium shadow brush. So the first shade I'm going to go into is Sour Diesel, which is the matte brown out of the palette, and I'm going to go in with a Sigma E35 tapered blending brush. Now with this shade, I'm going to apply it into my outer V, and then kind of into my crease, and then blend it upwards. Normally I would put a transitional shade first, but since this palette doesn't have one, I'm going to try to blend this one out as one. But if not, then I'm going to maybe go in with the Gemini palette, since that one does have a couple matte transitional shades in it. I'm also taking the shade and kind of like rounding out my outer V. So how I'm blending this out is I'm putting like the color down in like the outer V, and then I am kind of pushing it into the crease a little bit, and then I kind of do like little circular motions, really blending it upwards. Honestly, this brush is like the most perfect brush for stuff like this, because you can also kind of really jam color into the crease, but it'll also blend out just literally anything. So without knowing this palette, this is why I picked up this Sigma E35. It is honestly my favorite blending brush, just because it'll blend out anything. But I'm actually really impressed with how this shadow is blending out. It's, you know, normally I don't apply a really dark shade and really work with it to blend it out really kind of seamlessly and get like a transitional shade out of it as well. But this one actually is doing pretty good. But as you can see with this shade, for how it blended, you can see like it It doesn't look really patchy either. Like it just kind of is really dark and then it kind of like buffs out. So that's why I really like this, but it's not like the hardest shade to blend out either, which is really nice because sometimes like matte, like deeper shades can be like the biggest bitch to blend out, especially since they are deeper. But this one actually was a dream to blend out. I don't think it's that bad. And to help kind of blend out these edges just a little bit, I'm going to go in with a little bit of canvas on that brush that we used earlier. I'm just going to kind of buff out these edges a little bit, just to kind of get like a really nice seamless blend. And then the next shade I'm going to go into is called Space Queen, which is the deep matte kind of blue shade in the palette. And I'm going to go in with a Morphe M507 brush. And then with this shade I'm going to pretty much put it right in my crease. And then kind of also round out the outer V. Actually, I'm going to go in with my Sigma E35 tapered blending brush from earlier. And then I'm just going to use that to kind of blend this and the other matte that we just used previously together. And then off camera, I'm just going to cut my crease using my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the shade Fair with a BH Cosmetics flat shader brush. So once you get the crease cut, I'm going to go into Mean Green, which is like the emerald green shimmer shade out of the palette, with a BH Cosmetics flat shader brush. And I'm actually going to apply this one dry, so I'm not wetting my brush before applying. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this shade into the outer third of that concealer line, just to see how shimmery it is. It looks a lot more blue than it does in the pan to me, because when you look at it, like I'm using this one, it almost looks like I'm applying that one. Or is it just me? I'm just going to push this on the outer third. That's a really pretty shade though, I really like that. And then using a wet brush, here is it applied wet. So you can definitely tell it's a lot more metallic when you do apply it wet, but that is pretty standard with shimmer shades. But you get a lot more color payoff, it seems, when you do wet your brush, and it seems a lot more like metallic shimmery. But I mean, it did apply really well though dry too, but I think I just prefer it wet because I really want that like metallic sheen. And then the next shade I'm going to go into is Sweet Tooth, which is kind of an aqua kind of shimmer shade in this palette. And I'm going to go in with a dry BH Cosmetics flat shader brush from earlier. And then with this shade I'm going to apply it to the center of the lid, just in the center kind of third. And I'm overlapping it just a little bit with Mean Green. I really love this shade though. Ooh, that is pretty. And then here is the shade applied wet. So as you can see, it almost seems like it got a little bit more pigmented in a way, and that it's really, really vibrant. So with this one too, I do definitely prefer it applied wet. And then the next shade I'm going to go into is called Granddaddy. It's kind of like an antique gold in my opinion, and I'm going to go in with a flat shader brush again. And then with this shade, I'm going to apply it dry into the inner third of the eye. And then here is the shade applied wet. So like all the other ones, it seems like it's just a little bit more metallic, which it seems like it's pretty standard for Melt Cosmetics shimmer shades. And then to help me kind of blend out this outer V, I'm going to go in with a little bit of Space Queen on that Morphe M507 brush. I'm just going to kind of buff that into the shimmer shade, just ever so slightly, and I'm only doing it on the outer V as well, just to kind of get everything to kind of match and deepen up a little bit, and to kind of get rid of all these kind of harsh lines. And then here's where I'm at right now with the look, and then off camera I'm just going to apply the rest of my face. Before I put mascara and eyelashes on, I just want to show you guys this, but it seems like the shadows, like the shimmer shades, it kind of moved upwards from where I actually originally placed them. If you kind of look, you can kind of see that they kind of got out of that cut crease that I had, and they kind of gravitated upwards. So like some of the particles of like the glitter or the shimmer kind of moved upwards, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's not as sharp as I do have it on this eye. And then this one's kind of doing that same thing like right in this little area, but it's not as bad as this one. So I just want to point out that maybe the shimmers might move if you don't pack them down really heavy. It kind of seems like they just kind of want to move around a little bit. To counteract that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a Sigma E06 winged eyeliner brush with a little bit of Space Queen, that matte deeper blue shade, and I'm going to just lightly trace the top of my cut crease. This will help kind of give us a more perfected look. Make it a little bit more sharp too. You can also do this with any type of eyeliner brush that you have. I just prefer this one because I think it's a really nice little precise brush. So next I'm going to take a little bit of Space Queen on an Eco Tool smudge brush. I'm going to run that right underneath my lower lash line. And then to help me kind of blend that out, I'm going to take a Morphe M423 brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of that flashback shade from earlier, and I'm going to kind of dust that right underneath. Just to kind of help blend this out. And then for an inner corner highlight, I'm going to go into Gravity OG, which is this gorgeous kind of bright goldish kind of orange shade, and I'm going to go in with an Eco Tool smudge brush. And I'm going to apply this with a dry brush to see how intense it is, and then I might go in with it damp. I'm not too sure yet. I'm going to try it damp because I want it really metallic. It's actually a really, really pretty shade. I don't have anything like this one. The more I look at it, Gravity OG is just a little too dark for my inner corner, so I'm actually going to go in with a little bit of Ring Light from the James Charles palette. I'm going to only put that like right in the center. And then I'm going to leave the rest with Gravity OG. I just wanted so my eyes aren't so closed, but I feel like when I did Gravity OG it really kind of closed my eyes. So I think this is going to make a big difference. So here's the finished look using the Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette, and honestly I'm really loving this look. I haven't done anything ever similar to it, but I really wanted to use as many of the eyeshadows that I could, and I also wanted to use Gravity OG in my inner corner because I thought this would be a really cool kind of pop. I was actually going to do Blue Dream, but then I'm like, you know what, I want to do something fun, so I decided on doing Gravity OG. I'm super excited that I did it. However, I just wanted to do something a little bit different, but also using as many eyeshadows that I could in the look. The only ones I did not get into were Black Widow right here and then Blue Dream, but otherwise I used 6 out of 8 of the shades in this palette. And I'll be honest, I really love the color story of this palette. I think it is super cool. I love how they did like these icy blues. You have an emerald green here. You have really cool matte shades that are very unique. You don't see these kind of shades much. You also have really cool antique kind of gold shades, and then you also have like a fiery gold as well with like an orange undertone. And honestly, I think the colors in here are just really cool, and I really do not honestly have anything like this in my collection, by no means. So for me personally, having a larger eyeshadow collection, I just prefer having unique palettes, and I think that's really cool that Mellow Cosmetics does that. So honestly, I just really love it. And I have also been really, really obsessed with like blues and greens lately, especially like these emerald kind of shades. So this palette really speaks to me. And then as far as pros for this palette, I really enjoy the color scheme. Again, I think it's very unique, and honestly I have nothing like it in my collection, which I really appreciate. And another pro about this palette is that it has a beautiful formula to it. None of the shades that I used today, even though I did use 6 out of 8, they all applied beautifully. There was no duds in this palette, and they really worked very well, and they're very highly pigmented. I also want to point out, if you are somebody that likes the Mellow Cosmetics Gemini palette's formula with both the matte and the shimmers, it is identical in the Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette. From my own knowledge, they literally apply the same, they work the same, they act the same. I just really enjoyed the formula of Gemini, so I was really happy that Smoke Sessions had the exact same one. I noticed yesterday that the Gemini palette did sell out on mellowcosmetics.com, and if you were not able to pick this one up, I did do a video a couple weeks ago where I did one eye using the Mellow Cosmetics Gemini palette and then other side using some dupes. And if you are interested in that, I will link it in the description box down below for you. I also want to point this out as a pro, but Mellow Cosmetics has one of the best customer service teams I have ever dealt with online. I'm not even kidding. I think they are amazing, and I just want to point this out. But I actually received a broken palette. Mine had Blue Dream, Sweet Tooth, and Mean Green up here all smashed to hell when I received it. This palette was actually broken. I actually kind of just shimmied it, so I was able to do a first impressions for you guys because I really wanted to use this palette today. But mine was literally smashed to hell. I had so much eyeshadow like all around my palette. It was all in my box. It was just a literal mess. But I, within like 20 minutes of receiving my palette, I took a picture of it. I gave them my order number and my full name, and I emailed their general kind of email box thing that they have on their website if you have any order issues. And then within 30 minutes of sending my original email, I had somebody reply to me saying, hey, we're sorry about this happening. Can we send you a new palette to the address that we have on file? And there was like no questions asked. It was really easy, and I really appreciate it. I've honestly had so many issues with customer service people online when I've had like broken palettes or I've had tracking issues and stuff like that. Like, it's just been a literal nightmare. But they made it like super easy and it was really simple. There was no issues, nothing. And I just want to point that out because I think it's something that we should really talk about when companies have really nice customer service. I'll be honest, I only have like one kind of con about this palette because I really honestly think it's a really great palette. But for me personally, it is a very expensive palette. You know, it is $48 for retail, and then you have to pay $7 for shipping if you do decide to order through melcosmetics.com. I mean, granted, the shipping is actually really good. I ordered mine on Tuesday afternoon, like really late in the day, and I received my palette on Friday, on Black Friday if you are in the States, and that is with Thanksgiving in between, so there was a holiday. But I was really actually impressed on how quick I actually received my palette. I thought that was really nice for that cost that I received it very early. However, you know, it is a $55 palette. That's pretty high for 8 eyeshadows. However, a personal preference about this eyeshadow palette, I honestly wish it was a 10-pan eyeshadow palette like GEMINI instead of the 8 pans. I honestly really feel like it's lacking some shades in here. You know, like maybe like a transitional shade for like the blue side, like maybe like a lighter emerald green or like a medium gray. And then for the sour diesel side, maybe like a taupe shade or like maybe like an orangey brown. For me personally, I don't really want to sit there and blend out Space Queen and Sour Diesel in my crease if this is the only palette I'm going to be taking, because if you're in a rush, it can be kind of a pain in the ass to blend out darker shades in the crease. At least that's my personal preference. I prefer a lighter transitional shade to kind of help me out. And also, if you are a beginner, it might be really difficult for you to use Sour Diesel or Space Queen as a transitional shade blended out, because they can sometimes be a little tricky to take a darker shade and blend them out to a lighter shade. But that's just my personal preference. I just wish I had some, you know, lighter shades to make it a little bit easier. Kind of like how the GEMINI palette has it. They have Mochi up here, which is kind of a lighter shade. And they also have Lorelli down here. These are both pretty nice transitional shades. I wish that they had something like this in the Smoke Sessions palette. However, another personal preference about this palette is I honestly just wish it wasn't so pot and marijuana based. Like, personally, I am not somebody that smokes weed. I don't plan on smoking weed. It's just not my thing. I mean, I don't care if other people do it. By all means, if you want a hot box in your car, go for it. I don't really care. It's not my thing. I just don't give a shit. But honestly, for me, that is somebody that doesn't do it. It's just not my thing. I just wish it wasn't so weed based. You know, like how the GEMINI palette isn't? I just wish that this one wasn't either. I mean, I know that Mel Cosmetics is like super into legalized marijuana. I know that they, you know, sell stuff on their website for it, and a lot of their like campaigns are, you know, weed based. But for me personally, it's just not my thing, and I just wish that this one didn't have all of that on it. But I totally get it, and you know, I did buy it knowing it. It's not like a big deal to me. I just wish it didn't have all like these little marijuana leaves on here and all of that, because I don't want everybody thinking I smoke weed when I don't. You know what really comes to mind is I could see like a high school kid being like, hey mom, I want the Mellow Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette for Christmas. And your mom's like, okay, and then she looks at it and goes, well, you can't have any weed paraphernalia in here. Why would you want that? Do you smoke weed? And you know, just going like crazy about it. And you're just like, I just want the eyeshadows. They look cool and I want it for the colors. And then your mom won't let you have it just because it has weed symbols on here. I could just see that just really sucking. And I honestly, my mom would probably be the same. But I mean, honestly, that just, I don't know. That's another reason why I just don't like it. I don't know. I'm just not into like having like pot leaves all over. I don't know. Just not my thing. But I totally get that Melt is into it. It's just not me. I also want to just throw this in here, but it really bothers me that this palette looks like this after only one use. I mean, just disregard the top 3 because obviously they arrived smashed. But like even like Gravity OG down in here, this one did not come broken at all. And you can't even see the little leaf in here anymore. And either with like Granddaddy, it kind of has like a big dent already. So for me personally, that kind of just, I don't know, kind of upsets me because I want it to look pretty for as long as it can. So when it comes down to it, would I recommend the Mel Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette? And honestly, I definitely would. I think this palette is really beautiful. And honestly, the colors in here are just really gorgeous. Everything worked for me that I used for today's look. There was no issues with the formula. They were very shimmery, very easy to blend out. I just really loved it. And honestly, I just really love Mel Cosmetics' quality of eyeshadows. I think they're amazing. However, I just want to mention, you know, this palette is definitely kind of a splurge palette in my opinion. It's definitely not like a necessity by no means, but if you're looking for something really fun for Christmas or you're looking for something fun to add to your collection, this palette would be great for you. And I also want to point out, if you are curious if the Smoke Sessions is close to the Emerald Obsessions from Huda Beauty, honestly, I don't see any similarities to them. I know I've seen people kind of questioning online about it, but honestly, I don't see any similarity at all. They kind of have the similar vibe of emerald colors, but besides that, there are no similarities whatsoever. Because I feel like the Huda Beauty one, it has a little bit more like taupes to it and it has like pewter shades. Kind of has like a cool tone vibe to it, whereas the Smoke Sessions has like those gold shades in here, and it also has like those brighter blues as well. And then if you guys are curious as to swatches, I'm going to swatch the palette for you guys as well. So before we start swatches, I'm going to go left to right in the palette. I'm not going to have any primer on my arm, nothing like that. It's just going to be dry swatches. So the first shade is Gravity OG. Here is Granddaddy. Here is Black Widow. Here is Sour Diesel. Here is Space Queen. Here is Mean Green. Here is Sweet Tooth. And then last but not least, here is Blue Dream. And then if you are curious, here are the swatches of the Emerald Obsessions palette from Huda Beauty. In the comments down below, let me know what your thoughts are on this palette, what you think of the swatches, and if you are going to be picking this palette up, and if you are not, let me know why. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And as always, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below, and if you would like to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram account is @lethal_kitten. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and until next time, bye!